So what projects or initiatives is UN Women undertaking with the government in Tanzania to ensure that this nation reaches goal number 5 on gender equality come 2030?
Yes, I'm Hodan Addou, and I'm the country representative for UN Women here in Tanzania. Yeah, UN Women has been supporting the government of Tanzania's international, regional, and national commitments to gender equality and the empowerment of women in a number of ways through policy, legal reforms, and in indirect programming for specific interventions that are aimed at empowering women. The programs that we have specifically are on issues around women's political participation, ensuring that women have an active role in all decision-making processes, engagement in policy reforms and decision-making, but also in public and private sector in terms of the increasing the number of women in leadership positions. We're also supporting women's economic empowerment in a number of efforts, particularly targeting women farmers, women entrepreneurs, looking specifically also as opportunities on women's employment as well as entrepreneurship, looking at barriers to those opportunities, including issues around access to land, access to information, to assets and resources. And it's something that is very much in line, of course, with the government's priorities in ensuring that women are lifted out of poverty and are engaged in productive activities. We're also, of course, an important area that is a cross-cutting issue for us is on elimination on violence against women. And that is something that we've been working very closely with all segments of government, civil society, private sector, ensuring that the implementation of the National Action Plan on violence against women and children is implemented through a number of efforts that we're doing. For instance, that UN Women has very much been engaged in strengthening the capacities and in fact setting up the gender and children's desks in a number of locations in Tanzania, capacitating the police through a number of trainings in terms of a better response, strengthening the judiciary in providing better access to justice for women. And this is something that we've been doing throughout the country, both in Zanzibar and here in mainland as well. It's working very closely as well with a number of stakeholders in government and as well as in civil society as well. Looking primarily, our intervention on violence against women has been on the issues of prevention. We want to make sure that we target preventive efforts to reduce violence against women and looking at it from a multi-sectoral approach. That is a very significant work that we're doing in the country, and it's really strengthening the institutions, making sure that government institutions are accountable and responsive to protection obligations, but also looking as well engagement of men, community leaders, looking at social norms and practices that are driving gender-based violence, but also driving inequalities in terms of access to resources, on economic opportunities, education opportunities, and even issues of political engagement. We've seen not only in Tanzania, but in a lot of other countries, high rise of issues around violence against women in politics, whether it's sexual harassment, intimidation, and so forth. So that I think it's something that is cross-cutting. Violence against women interventions are cross-cutting because, in every aspect of a woman's life, women have to feel safe to be engaged in public life, but also to be safe in home. So it's something that we are working closely with the government and with our stakeholders, civil society, traditional leaders, various communities, and so forth. Another important area that we are also engaged in is supporting the government in terms of data. A lot of the progress, as you mentioned, on the SDGs is to track progress, is to help countries to track progress in terms of their commitments, international commitments to gender equality. Tanzania has done very well in terms of leadership. We have high levels of women in leadership positions with a president, as well as key line ministries that is the first in this region. We have a woman who's a minister of defense, a woman foreign minister. We have a woman who is a speaker of Parliament, National Assembly, and it's it's not that many that you see in this region, as well as, of course, an increased number of women in local government. So we're looking at those indicators, measuring them with very close partnership with the National Bureau of Statistics, as well as with the OCGS in Zanzibar, tracking progress so that Tanzania, when it's ensuring that they are meeting its obligations, they have the data to say where are we in terms of women's access to resources, to land, to rights, to all aspects of life within the SDGs. So that is something that we've quite invested on, strengthening the government's capacity for gender statistics to then inform data. And that we've even gone a bit further, is to then ask the questions of why. What does this data mean? So we've undertaken and we've launched on the 7th of March a study, first of its kind in Tanzania, that is looking at social institutions and gender inequality. It is qualitatively analyzing social norms and practices that are contributing to gender inequality. We have very progressive laws, but then the attitudes and perspectives of institutions, whether it's institutions of a family, institutions of church, or mosques, institutions of public sectors and private sectors as well. What are those attitudes? What are preventing women? So we're unpacking that. So this will be the first type of data, and we're hoping that it will be a standard data that the National Bureau of Statistics and others can use that to then inform the right interventions, to then understand why are we at a certain level of progress, and what are the factors, the social norms beyond the culture, beyond the laws that are preventing women from realizing their rights, from looking at women even accessing resources, where in some cases there's even attitudes in terms of women seeking permission from their spouses to even venture into economic activities and so forth. So there's so many factors that it's not only for Tanzania, but it's a context in many of the countries in Africa, but also elsewhere. So that's something that we're very proud of, that we've launched on the 7th of March. And I think also the other area, which is a growing area, is our work around HIV/AIDS. It's a partnership with the with TACAID, as well as with the women networks of women living with HIV/AIDS. So looking at the gender dimensions of HIV/AIDS, the factors that are increasing levels of HIV/AIDS infection, as we've seen it from adolescent girls, and as well as access to medicine and information, and also the risks of cervical cancer for young adolescent girls. So those are some partnerships that we've had, and it's all around the priorities of the government and all the efforts that we've done. And I think maybe perhaps on economic empowerment, if I can dwell on that, is we have interesting programs that are looking at climate resilience agriculture, the impact of climate change on the lives of women, farmers, and decisions that they have taken to ensure that they are very much, have better, to address those issues and adapt to climate change. And a program that we have in Singida is looking specifically at that. We're also working closely in Zanzibar, looking at the gender issues on the blue economy, looking at it not only in terms of opportunities for economic empowerment, but also the devastating impacts on climate change on women who are engaged in that sector, in fisheries and other marine products and so forth. So those opportunities, but also the challenges that has been posed upon them, topped up, of course, of what we've seen is the issues around COVID. And I think combining the two is it's something that we need to look at, I think, for the future, not only here in Tanzania, but in elsewhere, on the impact of COVID on the progress that we've made on gender equality, but also the threats of climate change to redress the burden that might be placed on women in terms of care, that they might have to go even further in many localities to fetch water. They in turn then risk other risks to their health, to their well-being, on issues of violence and so forth. So I think what COVID combined with climate change is creating for us is to reassess our interventions globally to then ensure that the challenges in the future, that we're well prepared. And I'm very happy that the environment policy that was just launched last month in Dodoma, that is providing an opportunity. We hope to work with the ministries to ensure that issues of gender and climate change are very much, integrated, because it's going to have a devastating impact on our progress if we do not put in place measures, particularly consulting women. How has it impacted them, especially in vulnerable communities where they have seen a huge impact on their lives and in their well-being. So I think it's really, I think, what we see as UN Women is, yes, to support, of course, government in terms of the current policies that they have, but also as an international organization to help also bring in that global perspective, so that the country is also prepared to address future challenges that will be impacting on commitments to gender equality and women's empowerment in the country.